But life has a way of testing even the purest connections. As rumors of my friendship with Dodi al-Fayed filled the papers, Thomas quietly stepped back. I tried to reach him, calls unanswered, letters returned unopened. Finally, one evening, I found him at the hospital again. He looked tired, distant. "Why did you disappear?" I asked. He hesitated. Then, quietly. "Because the world doesn't belong to people like us, Diana. It belongs to stories, and you already have too many written for you." I felt tears sting my eyes. "You think I care about their stories?" "I think you care too much about everyone's pain," he said gently. "And you'll forget your own if you're not careful." We stood there for a long time, two souls caught between love and reality. Finally, he took my hand and pressed it to his heart. "Promise me," he said, "that no matter what happens, you'll keep loving the world. Even when it doesn't love you back." I nodded, unable to speak. A few weeks later, I left for Paris. I never saw him again. But that night, when the car sped through the tunnel and the world turned into flashing lights and chaos, I remember one final thought before everything went dark, his voice, soft and steady. "Light a candle and sit beside it. When people talk about me now, they speak of the princess, the icon, the tragedy. But if I could tell them one truth, one secret I carried in the quiet corners of my heart, it would be this. The man I truly loved was not a prince or a billionaire. He was a man who saw me without the crown, who believed that kindness was the only royalty that mattered. Thomas didn't rescue me from my life. He reminded me how to live it. So if you ever visit a children's hospital in London and see a painting of a woman holding an umbrella over a child, stop for a moment. That was his last gift to me, a promise in color. And if you listen closely, maybe you'll hear it too, that small, steady whisper of hope. Love isn't measured by forever. It's measured by how deeply it changes you. And in that truth, I found my peace. Not in fairy tales. Not in crowns. But in the quiet love of a man who taught me how to be human again. The end. One evening, after we closed a charity auction together, I offered him a ride home. He lived in a small flat near Notting Hill, tiny, unassuming, filled with books and half-finished sketches of the hospital children. "You paint?" I asked, touching one of the canvases. "Only what I can't say," he said softly. I saw a painting of a woman standing in the rain, holding an umbrella over a child. Her face was turned away, but I knew it was me. "You've been painting me?" I whispered. He smiled. "I've been painting kindness. You just happen to look like her." For a moment, silence hung between us, fragile, electric. The world outside didn't matter. There were no titles here, no headlines, no pretending. Just two souls who had finally found someone who saw them. Our friendship grew in stolen moments, coffee in small cafes where no one recognized us, long walks by the river at dawn. He'd tell me about his late sister, who had died of leukemia at 10. That was why he volunteered, he said, to keep her laughter alive. I told him how trapped I felt between duty and desire, to be a mother, a humanitarian, a woman, all at once. He never judged. Only once did he say, "You give so much, Diana. But have you ever let someone give to you?" The question stayed with me. One cold night in early 1997, I asked him, "Do you ever get tired, Thomas? Of giving so much of yourself away?" He looked at me for a long moment. "Only when I forget that love isn't something you spend, it's something you share." And somehow, that night, as we walked under the dim streetlights, our hands found each other's. It wasn't passion in the movie sense, no grand gestures, no declarations. Just a quiet joining of hearts that had known too much noise. I don't know if you can call it love. But I do know it was real. For a few months, I lived differently. I laughed more. I slept better. I stopped looking for cameras. With Thomas, there was no performance, just peace. He once told me, the world doesn't need a perfect princess, Diana. It needs a human one. Those words freed me. I began visiting shelters unannounced, hugging strangers, sitting on hospital floors. I started being rather than appearing. And for once, I felt seen not as a symbol, but as a woman. The man Diana really loved, it wasn't Charles or Dodi. The flashbulbs always blinded me first. 1,000 clicks, 1,000 faces, none of which I knew, yet all of whom seemed to think they knew me. Princess, smile. Look this way. I smiled, as I was taught to. But behind that carefully trained smile was a truth I had learned to bury, the aching emptiness of being seen by everyone, yet known by no one. That night, after a charity gala in London, I came home to Kensington Palace and slipped off my shoes. The silence felt heavy. I could still hear the laughter of the crowd fading down the long hallways. I sat by the window, looking out at the city lights, wondering, would anyone ever love me for the woman I truly am, not the crown I wore? I didn't know it then, but the answer would walk into my life not in a palace, nor on a red carpet, but in the quiet corner of a children's hospital, where no cameras ever followed. It was raining that morning, one of those soft, persistent London rains that seems to soak through every thought. I was visiting a new pediatric cancer ward, one of the places closest to my heart. As I moved from bed to bed, holding tiny hands and hearing tiny stories, I noticed a man near the window. He wasn't dressed like a doctor or a reporter. Just a plain navy jumper, hands tucked into his pockets, talking softly to a boy who had lost all his hair. His voice was gentle, patient, the kind of calm you feel more than hear. When he turned and saw me, he smiled, not the polished, royal smile people gave to please, but a warm, human smile. "Your Highness," he said, nodding respectfully. "Just Diana, please," I replied automatically. "I'm Thomas," he said. "Volunteer counselor. I help the kids paint their fears away." I glanced at the easel beside him, a wild mess of color, joyful and chaotic. "And does it work?" I asked. He looked at me, blue-gray eyes steady. "Sometimes. Sometimes they teach me instead, how to be brave." Something in his tone stopped me. It wasn't pity. It was reverence, for their small courage, their quiet fight. It reminded me of something I'd lost, faith in simple goodness. Over the next few months, I kept visiting the hospital. Somehow, Thomas was always there, rain or shine, early morning or late evening. He had this way of making the sick children laugh without ever hiding the truth from them. Once, I asked him how he did it. He shrugged. "You don't hide the darkness, Diana. You light a candle and sit beside it." There was something profound in that simplicity. I found myself drawn to it, to him. He never asked about my marriage, my fame, my loneliness. He never asked anything at all. And maybe that was why, for the first time in years, I started talking. About my childhood. About how lonely the palace walls could be. About the endless photographs and rehearsed smiles. He listened. He really listened, as if my words mattered not because they were mine, but because they were true.